In the spring of 1996, the war in Bosnia had officially ended. The guns were mostly silent. The front lines were gone. The peace agreements had been signed. On paper, the country was no longer at war, but the ground still was. Across Bosnia, more than 2 million landmines remained, buried beneath roads, fields, forests, schoolyards, and farms. Entire villages sat frozen in place because nobody knew where it was safe to step. A child chasing a football could lose a leg. A farmer cutting grass could disappear in an instant. The war had ended above ground. Underneath it, the war was still waiting. And in one small village, outside Maglaj, the people had stopped returning home entirely. The fields surrounding the village were contaminated with mines left behind during the fighting between Bosniak and Serb forces. The roads were unsafe. The wells couldn't be reached. Livestock had already triggered several explosions. One man had died trying to recover firewood from the edge of the forest. The village was becoming a ghost town. Then a dog arrived, not a military robot, not a machine, a dog named Tessa. And over the next several months, Tessa would detect more than 150 landmines hidden beneath the soil of Bosnia, helping clear enough ground for an entire village to return home safely. This is the story of the dog who walked into minefields so people could walk out of them. The Bosnian War lasted from 1992 to 1995, and by the time it ended, the country had become one of the most heavily mined places on Earth. All sides in the conflict had used landmines extensively: anti-personnel mines, anti-tank mines, improvised explosive devices, defensive mine belts, hidden traps near abandoned buildings, mines placed along retreat routes, mines placed in orchards, fields, riverbanks, and forests. Some were mapped carefully, many were not. And unlike artillery or gunfire, landmines don't stop being dangerous when a war ends. They wait. A landmine can remain active for decades. Rain moves them. Mud buries them deeper. Snow shifts them downhill. Vegetation grows over them. Entire forests can become invisible killing fields. After the war, Bosnia faced a terrifying reality. Hundreds of thousands of displaced civilians wanted to return home, but huge areas of the countryside were deadly. Before reconstruction could begin, the mines had to be removed. The problem was scale. Human deminers worked slowly because they had to. Every inch of ground had to be examined carefully. One mistake meant death. Metal detectors helped, but Bosnia was full of shrapnel and metal debris from years of fighting. Every signal could mean a mine, or a rusted can, or a bullet fragment. Clearing even a small field could take weeks. And then someone proposed using dogs. Dogs experience the world differently than humans do. A human being has around 6 million scent receptors in their nose. A trained detection dog can have more than 300 million. To a dog, scent is not vague background information. It is structure, detail, direction, layers. The chemicals leaking from explosives, even buried underground, produce tiny odor particles that rise through soil and vegetation. Humans cannot detect them, dogs can. Military forces had already used dogs for bomb detection for decades. Airports used them, police used them. Search and rescue teams relied on them after earthquakes and disasters. But Bosnia presented a unique challenge. The mines were old, buried, wet, corroded, hidden in difficult terrain. The dogs would need exceptional discipline. One wrong movement could kill both the dog and the handler instantly. Among the dogs selected for training was an English Springer Spaniel named Tessa. She was energetic, intelligent, obsessed with rewards, and unusually focused during scent exercises. Trainers noticed quickly that she could isolate explosive odors faster than many other dogs in the program. More importantly, she stayed calm under pressure. That mattered, because Bosnia was full of pressure. Mine detection dogs are not trained like ordinary dogs. The process is highly technical. First, the dog learns to associate a specific scent with a reward, usually a toy or food. Explosive compounds like TNT become linked in the dog's mind with positive reinforcement. The dog is not taught what a mine looks like, only what it smells like. Then trainers gradually increase the difficulty. Explosives bury deeper underground, different weather conditions, different soil types, hidden distractions, wind variations. Eventually, the dog learns the final behavior that matters most: freeze and indicate the scent without touching the ground. That final part is critical. Scratching at the soil could trigger the mine. The dog must stop completely the moment the scent becomes strongest. Tessa mastered it. By 1996, she was deployed to Bosnia alongside international demining teams working to reopen contaminated areas. The work was exhausting. Dogs could only operate for limited periods because intense concentration drained them mentally. Handlers watched constantly for fatigue. A distracted dog was dangerous. Every search lane had to be approached carefully. Every signal had to be verified manually afterward by human deminers, and every successful detection potentially saved a life. Near the town of Maglaj, one village remained almost entirely abandoned. The war had passed directly through the area multiple times. Front lines shifted. Defensive positions changed hands repeatedly. Nobody had reliable records of where mines had been planted. Returning civilians described hearing explosions years after the fighting ended. Animals disappeared in the fields. One family reportedly tried to recover belongings from their home and triggered a mine near a pathway leading to the property. After that, most residents stopped trying to return altogether. The surrounding farmland was essential for survival, but it was unusable. That was where Tessa's team was sent. The terrain was difficult: wet soil, thick grass, uneven slopes, dense vegetation. The exact kind of environment where mines became hardest to locate. Human deminers began marking safe lanes while Tessa worked section by section. The process looked almost peaceful from a distance. The dog moved slowly through the grass, guided by her handler. Sniff, pause, move, sniff, pause, then stop. Every time Tessa froze, the deminers marked the location carefully. Then the humans took over. Sometimes the mine was only a few inches underground, sometimes deeper, sometimes connected to tripwires or secondary explosives designed specifically to kill deminers. Again and again, Tessa was correct. One mine, then another, then another. Days turned into weeks. The count climbed higher, over 100. The village had not just been mined, it had been saturated. By the end of the operation, Tessa had helped locate more than 150 landmines and explosive devices in the area. That number is difficult to fully process unless you understand what it means physically. Every single mine represented a future human tragedy waiting to happen. A farmer, a child, a returning family, a rescue worker, a person walking down the wrong path 1 second too late. Each detection removed one invisible death from the landscape. And unlike dramatic scenes in movies, real demining is usually quiet. No music, no speeches, just concentration. Sweat, mud, careful movements measured in inches. The emotional impact often comes afterward, when civilians are finally allowed to return. That was the moment that mattered most. As sections of land were declared safe, families slowly began coming back into the village. Homes were repaired, fields reopened, roads became usable again. children could move through areas that had been forbidden for years. The ground itself was becoming normal again, because a dog had walked through it first. One of the least understood consequences of landmines is psychological. A mined landscape changes how human beings think. People stop trusting the ground beneath them. Paths become suspicious. Fields become threatening. Ordinary movement becomes a calculation. Even after areas are cleared, fear often remains for years. That's why mine clearance is not only about removing explosives, it is about restoring confidence, restoring routine, restoring the ability to live without constantly calculating risk. In Bosnia, that mattered enormously. The war had already shattered communities psychologically. Landmines extended the fear long after the fighting ended. Dogs like Tessa became part of reversing that process, not symbolically, practically. They accelerated clearance operations and made large-scale returns possible faster than human teams alone could have managed, and they did it with astonishing accuracy. Studies later showed that properly trained mine detection dogs could identify explosives with success rates high enough to transform humanitarian demining operations worldwide. Countries dealing with landmine contamination began expanding similar programs. Cambodia, Afghanistan, Angola, Mozambique, places where wars had ended officially but continued underground. Many mine detection dogs performed important work, but Tessa became especially respected because of her consistency. Handlers described her as intensely focused once she entered a search area. Some dogs became distracted or overly excited. Tessa reportedly maintained concentration for unusually long periods. She trusted the work, and the humans trusted her. That trust relationship is difficult to explain unless you've worked in dangerous environments. A deminer walking into a contaminated field behind a detection dog is making a profound act of trust. Your life depends partly on another living creature correctly identifying something invisible. And in Tessa's case, that trust kept being rewarded, detection after detection, field after field, life after life potentially saved without ever knowing it. Because the people who don't step on landmines usually never realize how close they came. Tessa never understood geopolitics. She didn't understand the Bosnian War. She didn't know what ethnic conflict was, or ceasefire agreements, or collapsed Yugoslavia, or NATO, or the Dayton Accords. She understood scent, training, reward, and the relationship she had with her handler. But sometimes history changes because someone, or something, does one job exceptionally well. In Bosnia, after years of artillery, executions, displacement, and destruction, entire communities were trapped by what the war had left beneath the soil. The land itself had become hostile to human life, and part of making it safe again came down to a dog walking carefully through the grass. One pause at a time, one frozen signal at a time, one buried mine at a time, more than 150 explosives removed, an entire village given the chance to live again. There are monuments to generals, statues to politicians, museums for battles and treaties, but history is also shaped quietly by beings who never become famous outside the people they saved. In a field outside Maglaj, Bosnia, long after the shooting stopped, a spaniel named Tessa helped end a small remaining piece of the war, not by fighting, by finding what the war tried to leave behind.